It's Saturday and we're in Simpsonville, South Carolina, and it's late on Saturday. The weather is beautiful outside. It's in the low 50-degree mark, but still very pleasant. We've been doing a trivia kinds of questions out of the book of Genesis, but today is not trivia. And it is to some degree out of the book of Genesis. But most of you probably realize tomorrow is Sanctity of Life Sunday. So I want to ask you three questions about sanctity of life. And I want to speak to you about the fact that God said in the book of Genesis, go, be fruitful and multiply. In the book of Psalms, it says that we were fearfully and wonderfully made in our mother's womb. Jesus said, don't forbid the children from coming unto me. Life has always been, in the scriptures, a sacred thing. Even during the Old Testament times, there was cities of refuge where people could go until they got a fair trial before any kind of harm could be done to them. It's very clear that life is precious. As a matter of fact, most of God's laws about blood deal with the fact that blood is the lifeblood of human beings. So here are your three questions. How many abortions do you think are performed in the United States? How many abortions do you think are done in the United States? Question number two. What number of those do you feel are done because of incest and rape? And what part of those abortions done do you think are because of the medical viability of the fetus or super danger to the mother? What part of those that are done, those abortions, are done because of incest and rape, and how many because of medical, perceived medical necessity for either the mother or the child? And finally, number three, how many people do you think in the United States are desiring to adopt? In other words, what would happen if we didn't have abortion? What would happen to these children that are perhaps not wanted by their parents? How many people do you think there are that would like to adopt? Those are three great questions, and my guess is most of you, unless you're very close to the issue of sanctity of life, don't really know the answers. So here they are. Question number one. There are 1.3 million surgical abortions done every year in the United States. 1.3 million done every year in the United States. However, that's really a very misleading number because, you see, there are many chemically induced abortions that are not surgically required. And there are 14 million chemical induced abortions every year in the United States. Now, to further add to insult to injury, 11,000 every year are late-term abortions. How do I define late-term? After the 7th month, long after viability of the child is viable at about 24 weeks. It could actually live outside the womb at 24 weeks. But we're talking about 49 weeks. We're talking about 7 months after the conception, they are still aborted. How can we not call that murder? How could we possibly not call it murder? Question number two. How many of those abortions are because of incest and rape? Less than 1%. Less than 1% of all of those 1.3 million surgical abortions are done because of incest or rape. So much for that argument. And then what percentage of those are because of the danger to the fetus or the mother? Less than 4% are done because of the danger to the mother or to the fetus. That means that 95% of the abortions in America today, both chemically induced and surgically induced, let me say it again, 95% are done because they're after the fact birth control abortions. 95% after the fact abortions because of just desiring not to have a baby. Now, finally, the third question is, what if we had all of these babies? What would happen? Well, it's interesting because, you see, the statistics show that there are 9.9 million parents who are considering adoption. 9.9 million parents who are considering adoption. Now, that's not even breaking it down as to how many would be willing to take more than one, but that would take care of more than 8 years worth of abortions. Now, here's an even more interesting statistic. 500,000 parents are on waiting lists. They're on waiting lists desiring babies, many of which are on waiting lists outside the United States because there are not enough children available for adoption in the United States. Many of those children that will be adopted from foreign countries will come to us with significant medical problems, and yet there are very viable children. 1.3 million viable children that could be available for adoption in the United States. Sanctity of life. God holds life very highly. And it's our responsibility as Christians to speak out and not let them distort the facts and the figures about abortion. That's your thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day.